This is 70s Sitcom Flashback, the show that looks back at the sitcoms that defined the 1970s. Your hosts are Robbie and Terry, both 15. Every week they break it down so you actually get it.
Flashback, the show that looks back at the sitcoms that defined the 1970s. I'm Terry.
And I'm Robbie, and today we're talking about Chico and the Man, the show that basically invented the odd couple sitcom for a whole new generation.
Right. It premiered on NBC in September of 1974 and immediately became a monster hit.
Immediately, it was the number 2 rated show in America in its very first season. Number 2.
That's insane. Only All in the Family beat it, and that show was already a cultural institution.
So the setup is simple. Ed Brown is this grumpy old white garage owner in East Los Angeles, and Chico Rodriguez is this young, optimistic Chicano guy who talks his way into a job.
The chemistry between Jack Albertson as Ed and Freddie Prinze as Chico was just electric, genuinely magical.
Freddie Prinze was only 19 years old when the show premiered. 19, he was basically our age plus a few years and already a TV star.
He'd done stand-up comedy and landed a spot on The Tonight Show, and Johnny Carson basically said, "This kid needs his own show."
And Hollywood listened, which honestly almost never happens that fast.
The show was groundbreaking because it centered a Latino lead character at a time when that was almost unheard of on American network television.
Chicano activists actually picketed the show before it even aired because they were worried it would rely on stereotypes.
Which is such an interesting moment. The community wanted representation, but also wanted it done right, and that tension was real.
And Freddie Prinze kind of won people over by being genuinely funny and warm, not a caricature.
His catchphrase was, "It's not my job," delivered with this perfect shrug, and audiences went absolutely wild for it every single time.
Jack Albertson had already won an Oscar and a Tony before this show. He was a legitimate legend, slumming it in a sitcom, or so people thought.
But he threw himself into it completely, and his grumpy but secretly caring Ed Brown became one of the great TV characters of the decade.
The show ran for 4 seasons, which by 70s standards was a solid, respectable run.
But the story behind the scenes got really dark, really fast, and that's part of why the show is so complicated to talk about.
Freddie Prinze was struggling with drug addiction and intense personal pressures even while the show was at its peak popularity.
He passed away in January of 1977 at just 22 years old, and it was a genuine national tragedy.
The show tried to continue without him by introducing a new young character, but it just never recovered that original spark.
You can't replace lightning in a bottle, and Freddie Prinze was absolutely that.
The producers brought in a kid named Gabriel Melgar to play a character called Raul, and the ratings dropped pretty significantly.
The show ended in 1978, and honestly, the legacy is this bittersweet mix of how groundbreaking it was and how it all ended.
But let's not lose sight of what it actually accomplished. It proved a Latino-led show could be a mainstream ratings champion.
Before Chico and the Man, network executives basically said audiences wouldn't connect with non-white leads in prime time.
And then this show comes along and demolishes that argument in about 15 minutes of airtime.
Freddie Prinze's son, also named Freddie Prinze Jr., grew up to be a pretty well-known actor himself.
Which feels like a bittersweet kind of continuation, carrying that name and that legacy forward.
The show also helped open doors for other Latino creators and performers throughout the rest of the decade and into the 80s.
Representation on screen matters because it tells people, hey, there's a place here for you.
And Chico and the Man said that loudly in front of millions of viewers every single Friday night.
It averaged something like 45 million viewers per episode in its peak season, which in the 1970s was an enormous number.
Television had maybe 3 channels, so those numbers meant practically the whole country was watching together.
Which is kind of wild to think about, a shared national experience every week. No streaming, no algorithm, just the show.
I think what makes Chico and the Man worth remembering is that it was genuinely trying to do something new and mostly succeeded.
It's messy and joyful and sad all at once, which is honestly kind of what the 1970s were like in general.
A decade of big ambitions, real breakthroughs, and some heartbreaking endings mixed right in.
If you've never seen it, find an episode. Freddie Prinze's energy just jumps right out of the screen even 50 years later.
And if you have seen it, maybe go back and appreciate just how much that show was doing that nobody had done before.
Thanks for hanging out with us today. See you next week on 70s Sitcom Flashback.